I am not one of you. First off, this story is not my own. My parents called me last night, FaceTime me actually, so that together they could tell me about what they experienced on Monday night. A little bit of background information first. My parents are very religious and believes that once a person dies, judgment is passed on their soul, and they either end up in heaven or in hell. To them, there is no in-between, and they don't believe in spirits or hauntings or anything of that nature. My little brother is autistic, and doesn't seem to pay any attention either way to the paranormal. I, on the other hand, have been a believer in the paranormal for as long as I can remember, and I've been involved in conducting paranormal research for the past 3 years. My parents have always given me lighthearted grief over my belief in the paranormal, so when they told me that they experienced something they could not explain and wanted to talk to me about it, I knew it must have been something significant. When their FaceTime request came in last night, they told this story. This past Monday night, my mom, dad, and little brother were driving through the historic downtown area of the island in my dad's Jeep Wrangler, like they do almost every night. My dad said it was a nice night, so they had removed the top and windows before they left the house. On their way back, they decided to turn down White Street, a street that houses some of the island's oldest and most historic homes. They stopped in front of the more famous houses on the street, one located directly across from an open lot that backs up to the river. My dad made a point of saying that when they put the car in park, my little brother said he felt creeped out, something they nor I have ever heard him say before. I mean, with his personality, he is never shy or scared of anything, really. My little brother then asked if my mom would take a picture of a sign in the vacant field across the house. She thought it to be an odd request from him, especially since it was so dark outside, but she didn't see the harm in obliging him. She picked up her phone, turned on the camera app, and pointed it at the sign. She pressed the button on her phone to take the picture, but the camera kept focusing in and out, in and out, in and out. My dad chimed in to say that it was at this point he noticed the shape of a person walking through the field towards the Jeep, not towards one of the houses, not towards the main intersection right up the street, not in a direction to go around the Jeep, but directly towards the Jeep. He couldn't make out any features other than it was human-shaped and coming right towards them. My mom is busy staring at the black camera screen and trying to get it to focus when the flash actually goes off and the picture takes. She said that she saw absolutely nothing except the sign and field on the screen, but that when she lowered the phone, she was startled by a woman standing no less than 2 feet from her, silent and motionless and staring at the river behind the field my dad had just seen her appear from. My mom assumed that she had scared this woman with a camera flash and said, "I'm so sorry about that, I didn't even see you there." Then the woman turned and looked at my mom in the passenger seat and slowly said, "I'm not one of you." Then she looked back at the river. My dad said the woman's tone was so different and distant that he didn't want to stick around to hear this woman's story any longer. So eventually, he put the Jeep in drive and they lurched forward. My mom almost immediately told my dad to stop, that the woman was probably in need of help or at least directions, since she's wandered up through a vacant field hours after the sun had set. They said it couldn't have been more than 1.5 or 2 seconds, and 25 feet before my dad obediently stopped the car. They all looked for this woman and she had vanished. My dad said there was absolutely no way that this woman could have gone anywhere that they wouldn't have been able to see. He estimates that it would take a person at least 10 seconds to get from where she was in the street to any house or garage or anything to hide her. She was just gone. Now, after they finished the story, I pelted them with questions about some of the finer details. They relayed to me that this woman was dry, not like she had climbed out of the river, had shoulder-length black-brown hair. It was hard for them to tell 100% in the dark, and she was wearing a green dress. They said that the dress didn't appear to be outdated. and there wasn't much about the lady's physical appearance that struck them as odd, just the fact that she appeared essentially out of nowhere and professed to not being one of them, whatever the heck that means. Still, my mom is still very much on the fence about what they experienced that very night, but a private conversation with my dad this morning revealed to me that he is certain they experienced something not of this world, or any world he has ever admitted to existing. He does not often sway from his convictions, so I know that what they experienced on Monday night must have shaken him. Only a room away. This experience takes place at my boyfriend George's house on April 17, 2017, a Monday. It was drawing close to 9 p.m., the finale of a show we wanted to watch due to air on the hour. We were upstairs in George's room and intended to go downstairs to watch the show with his mom, but only if his dad, who had been for a drink that night and would likely fall asleep and snore loudly, was out of the way. He's an annoying human being when he's drunk. So, 8:45 p.m. rolled around. I said to George casually, "I haven't heard your dad come upstairs, but check anyway. If he's up, we'll go down. If he's down, we'll stay up and watch it in here." So George did what I suggested and opened his bedroom door, turning on the main light on the stairs and stepping down onto the landing. With the door open, I could hear the rustling of someone on his parents' bed and fairly heavy breathing. I hadn't really heard it through the wall like we usually can, but I didn't really think anything of it. George confirmed. He said, "The door's shut and the light's off. He's already in bed. We'll go down, make a tea, and sit with my mom and the dog to watch it." I remember feeling a bit disgruntled. I'd already removed my bra and got changed into my pajamas, so I secretly been hoping to stay comfortable upstairs and watch it in peace together. Reluctantly, I got redressed. I get anxious if I'm not, and we took the stairs down. Both of us reeled in astonishment when we saw both his parents sitting in the living room, still watching television together. I immediately got chills and a weird vibe, knowing that we clearly heard what blatantly sounded like a human moving around and breathing in its parents' bedroom. We hadn't even thought twice. It wasn't an issue. We made tea and hurriedly discussed it, our voices covered by the sound of the kettle boiling, so his parents wouldn't hear what we were saying. I mean, his dad will sometimes discuss the paranormal when he's loosened up by alcohol, but his mom doesn't breathe a word of it at all. It was the kind of rushed conversation fueled by the giddy adrenaline you get when you're spooked, a rare moment of George being so sure of himself and his experience. I mean, despite our experiences and his home being the most of it, he remains slightly skeptical of it. Of course, we then had to go back upstairs to watch our show, and I made an offhand joke about safety in numbers, but in all honesty, with his parents awake and a good show about to start, we didn't have much room to be truly bothered by it. It was odd, and we can't explain it away, but at least it wasn't something terrifying. Just the usual bumps in the night. Typical of that old house. My Timeslip Story. Hey folks, thought I'd share a story that happened to myself and my best friend about 10 years ago. Now I'm new to Reddit, but long time experience of the supernatural and weirdness, and just wanted to share an experience, as I've had a great time checking out yours. Myself and friend were leaving another friend's apartment after an evening of hanging out, watching clips, having a laugh. All cool. We proceeded to leave the friend's house, and we were taking what is known as the back road around our community, with our location in regards to the main strip. We were super close to this on, and since it was a regular road used, It was in great shape to use, so blah blah, we leave the house. We eventually come to the stop sign, which allows you to make the right-hand turn to turn on this particular road. This road is about 30 to 40 second drive until you reach the community, super quick, as the speed limit is 70 kilometers per hour. Before moving from the stop, we both take note of the time, as it's a Monday night, and we both had to work in the morning. It was 1:01 a.m. for sure. We take the right turn from the stop for a bit of a straightaway. There's a slight right bend in the road, and you drive up in the gradual hill to a left bend and you're there. We're driving, gaining speed for the limit. Go around the first bend in the road. All of a sudden, it's foggy, which is no real surprise to us, as it's close to water, and this particular spot is always foggy. We continued up the hill at 70 plus kilometers per hour, and we come to the left-hand bend in the road. As we're going into the bend, we both feel like we skipped. Sort of the feeling you get when you get a little shock. You jump a bit, and notice something happened. As we're going into the left-hand bend, and both feel the skip, we are in fact going into the right-hand turn at the bottom of the hill again. Obviously, this gave us quite a start, and we noticed that the clock now said 1:14 a.m., and we were doing this all over again. The second time up the hill was fine, and it's the only occurrence of that nature that I've experienced. Plenty of others, but nothing like this. I dropped my friend off at home shortly after, and upon getting out, he said that we were never to speak of it again. Which really, you can't blame him. This is a 100% truthful event where 40 seconds took us 13 minutes. I started looking into what could have been a possible explanation for such a thing at the time, and came out with a book that sounds like it could have some insight to things of this nature, or at least some folks who experienced similar things. Excerpt from my notes from years ago. Now, one aspect of that strangeness is covered with great intelligence and forthrightness in Jenny Randall's book Time Storms, Amazing Evidence for Time Warps, Space Rifts, and Time Travel. In it, she makes a convincing case that time travel is not only possible, but that it may take place regularly around the world. Randall's lay the groundwork for such a possibility by explaining the current scientific thinking about quantum physics and the nature of time in layman's terms. Her explanations are clear and pretty easy to understand, which is quite a feat for such a complicated subject. And the reason for laying this groundwork is to offer a possible explanation for the many highly strange, can we call them paranormal, experiences that people have had that seem to indicate tears, warps, or leaps in the fabric of time. These fascinating anecdotes, which Randall's has collected from all over the world, are the meat of the book, and they all have one common element: a peculiar energy cloud that can transfer people and very often their vehicles into some unknown dimension. The result for these people can be missing time from just minutes to days, disorientation, what Randall calls the Oz factor, teleportation over impossible distances, electronic failure, gravity anomalies, and other phenomena. These peculiar growing clouds, time storms, just may be an explanation for a variety of paranormal phenomena, including ghosts, spirits, deja vus, UFOs, and what is thought of as alien abductions. Randall suggests that none of this is paranormal at all, and that these time storms are just a scientific reality that we do not understand yet. Here are just a few of the true accounts from time storms. Putre, Chile, 1977. At 3:50 a.m. on April 24th, during Army training exercises, a guard saw two fuzzy violet lights descending from the mountain and heading their way. At 4:15 a.m., Corporal Armando Valdez set out into the dark to investigate them. He returned 15 minutes later, but from the opposite direction in which he set out. He seemed to be in a kind of trance, muttering, "You do not know who we are or where we come from." And explicitly, the corporal had several days' growth of beard, and his watch had stopped at 4:15, but showed a date of April 30th. Oxford, Maine, 1975. At 3 a.m. on October 27th, David Stevens, 21, and an 18-year-old friend were in a wooded area when they heard a strange sound. They got in their car to go investigate, and the vehicle was soon enveloped in a colored glow. There was a blink in reality, and the two instantly found themselves about a mile away, with the car pointing in the opposite direction. They subsequently suffered various physical abnormalities, including severe disorientation. Somerset, England, 1974. On July 28th, Peter Williamson was having a barbecue in his backyard garden, which was interrupted by a heavy electrical storm. His dog, spooked by the threatening atmosphere, cowered under a tree. Peter went to rescue the animal. There was a bright flash, and Peter vanished into thin air. Police were called, and a thorough investigation and search were conducted without success. At 8 a.m., 3 days later, Peter was found in some nearby bushes with 1 foot in a pond, as if he just appeared there out of nowhere. Brazil, 1981. On April 20th, George Ramos, who was a representative for a chemical company, left his home at 6 p.m. to travel a few miles to a meeting. He never arrived. His Volkswagen was found on a side road a few miles from his home. The key was still in the ignition, and all his business and personal effects were still inside the car at the moment. Police investigations could not account for what really happened to George, or where he was. So, 5 days later, his wife received a frantic call from George. He said that while driving his car, he was covered in a strange white glow, after which he found himself in a dreamy, floating state. He came to standing by an unfamiliar road and sought help. To his shock, he discovered that the date was now April 25th, 5 days from the original date, and he was over 600 miles away from his home. Now, this just a small sample of the many true accounts offered in Randall's book, and she says there are many, many others she did not include. The time storm phenomenon seems to happen with some regularity, and many might never be reported. Now, is there any hard evidence for these bizarre occurrences? Randall's points to an incident that took place in Florida, in which a time storm may have been captured on videotape. In 1996, at 11:16 p.m., surveillance cameras were routinely monitoring and taping the area around a small factory. The videotape reveals what happened. As a worker approached one of the gates, a fuzzy white glow appeared and covered the area where the man was standing. There was brief electrical interference to the cameras, but when they cleared, the man had disappeared. 1 hour and 50 minutes later, the cameras recorded his sudden reappearance. He was on all fours, violently ill, and suffered a 2-hour gap in his memory. Was it aliens? Was it a time-traveling cloud? We'll never know. But it was sure freaky. Thanks for reading.